letting go is not such a bad thing. Let me tell you why.
And and it's called to be young, gifted, and black.
A few months ago, I was in a space where I was so afraid to let go of something. I was so afraid to break off something from my life, not because I knew there wasn't a next step for me or there wasn't a next opportunity for me, but because I feared not having that thing as my safety cushion. I feared not being in a position where I wouldn't be good, right? Good financially, physically, psychologically, and everything else that this thing brought to my life. And while I was in the midst of being confronted by not wanting to separate from this thing, not wanting to drop this thing or have this thing drop me, I was suffering. I was simply miserable. Every day doing this thing felt like someone was sticking a knife deeper and deeper into my heart, and it didn't make me feel nice. Though I knew it was only for a short period of time, it was seasonal, this thing being in my life, I still didn't want to let go of it because it brought me so much comfort. It brought me so much safety cushion. It brought me so much space to do a lot more than I knew I could do if I let go of this thing, or if this thing were to separate itself from me. And in the midst of that, I was going to God, obviously, and I was telling God in a very stubborn way almost that, Lord, I'm not going to give up on this thing. It will just have to break it off. It will just have to break itself from me by force. Because if it's up to me, I don't have the will, I don't have the courage to let go of this thing. And this went on for months. I was miserable. Time went by, and I just saw the buildup of something that was going to end very, very bad. And through that, I kept doing what was expected of me. I kept showing up. I kept doing everything that someone in my position is expected to do. Of course, I know I'm sounding completely weird because I'm not exactly saying what it is, but just bear with me because I promise I'm going to tie it all up at the end. So I am going through months of not trying to separate from this thing, of not trying to give this thing up, of not trying to no longer have this thing as sort of my cushion. And I don't want to step into the unknown. I don't want to step into foreign territory. I don't want to step into a place where I have to be vulnerable. And I was being very stubborn, even in my going to God and praying about the subject and praying about the matter. My prayer wasn't, Lord, if this is your will, let it be. Or maybe I thought it was at that time. My prayer was, Lord, I'm not going to separate from this thing. So if it's going to be that me and this thing is no longer a thing, it needs to drop me. It needs to be the one separating because I can't do it. I'm relying on this way too much than I think I should. And I know that. I recognize that. But I like it because it's giving me cushion. It's giving me safety. And again, this went on for months, and every day doing this thing for me just felt like torture because I was no longer giving the creative space and I was no longer giving the liberty to do what I want to do and to be who I was ordained into that thing to do. And so a couple months go by, and I feel myself getting to a breaker, right? Getting to a point where I can acknowledge that the end is coming. I can acknowledge that things are finally going to I'm finally going into that foreign territory. I'm finally going to go into that never been to territory, and it's still scary. It still feels foreign, and I still somehow don't want to go into it, though I know at this point it is inevitable. And so in November I officially part from this thing. And in as much as I realized that the safety cushion that thing brought into my life was no longer going to be there, in as much as I realized that the comfort that this thing brought into my life was no longer going to be there, and a lot of things that I relied on was no longer going to be there, I felt a sense of relief. I felt a sense of I can breathe. I felt a sense of, now I know that I can take my time into my own hands again, and I can move on into something bigger. But just before even thinking of what that next bigger thing was, the Lord dropped upon me through the thing that I let go to biggest blessing of 2024. Well, maybe third biggest. Maybe the third and fourth biggest blessing of 2024. And this came so unexpected because in my mind, once I separate from this thing, whether I drop it or it drops me, it was going to be a very shocking, rude awakening. It was going to be an ouch. It was going to be a fall so great that it could leave me with scars. But I think it was 2 weeks after this thing was no longer in my life or in my destiny or whatever the case may be, a huge miracle drops for me through what I just let go. And then 2 weeks after that, another huge miracle drops upon me through the very same thing that I separated from. Basically, this story is going into telling you that if there is something you are scared to drop, you are scared to detach yourself from, you are scared to leave behind, you are scared to no longer be with or without, I want you to know that oftentimes God will hide your biggest blessing and testimonies through what you think you can't live without or can't do without. In my mind, I saw myself in this thing, with this thing for a very long time. And the thought of no longer having this thing with me, in me, working for me, was just not something that I even entertained. And so when it was coming about that I began to feel very uncomfortable and starting to pick up signs that the clock is ticking and the end may be nearer than I expected, as I mentioned, I rebuked, I cast out, I fought that thought, that imagination, whatever the case may be. I fought that and I rejected that. And what God was reminding me was that in as much as your comfort zone may feel like comfort zone, may feel good, may feel safe, the biggest blessing that I have for you is beyond that. It's after that. It's past that. That's the old, right? That's the yesterday. That's the Egypt. I'm taking you to the promised land. I'm taking you to the land that's flowing with milk and honey. And you cannot get there if you are latching onto something that is dead, something that is old, and something that I am no longer associating with you. It was very hard, like I mentioned, for me to even fathom separating or dissociating from this thing, because for me, it was a safety cushion. For me, it was somewhere safe. For me, it was something that I needed, because, Lord, if you said I'm to do this, I'm to do that. How can I do or be that without this? And now it seems like I am going to separate from that. So it means that, am I no longer going to do those things or that thing? And God is like, no, you're still going to be the best self I've created you to be. It just means that that thing, that season that it needed to play in your life, it has done it, and it has done it to perfection. The reason why you are filled with anxiety, you are filled with stress, you are filled with all things negative that isn't of me, is because you have tried to hold on to this thing for far longer than what the allocated time and space was for it to be in your life. And you are using not my might or my strength, you are using your own capacity to try to leech onto this thing, when I've already said time is up. Let go, release, and step into the next blessing. Receive the next breakthrough. The reason why you are suffering, it isn't because I am making you to suffer, says the Lord. It's because you are trying to do things your way, and you are using your own human effort and your own human strength. The time for that thing to be in your life has passed. It is time for you to go on to new things. It is time for you to go on to bigger things, better things. And I do not want you to carry the weight, the anxiety, the fear that this thing brings into the next season I am ushering you into. So inasmuch as the last moments with this thing in my life was very bad and very much filled with anxiety and fear and terror and just questioning even my own potential, God used that to remind me that for as long as you keep holding on to things that are not of me and things that I have not ordained to be in your life and things that have expired their due time in your life, you are going to continue to feel frustrated. You are going to continue to be filled with anxiety. You are going to continue to be in fear, not because it's what I want from you, but because you are purposely not walking in alignment with my will. Like, okay, Lord, I will listen. So this thing finally, well, not finally, the expiration of this date came by, and I learned it, and I have to say that I learned it the hard way. But one thing that God showed me is that when you let go and let me push you through, even when it is painful, you will always be rewarded. Even when it feels like foreign territory and scary grounds, as long as you put your faith in me, as long as you put your faith in what I will do for you because of what I have done for you before, you will never be put to shame. You will never be in a position where people are mocking you, where people are looking down on you, where someone is saying, ha ha ha, look at them, they have fallen. I will never put you in a position where people will question, number one, the God whom you serve, and number two, the calling that I have invested into your life. So once I let go of this thing, again, I was abundantly blessed, not once, but twice, completely unexpected. And God used this to really prove to me that when I put my trust and faith in Him and step again into the unknown, the blessings will overflow, the breakthroughs will come. And me going into my next season, I will do so with laughter, with joy, trusting in God that as He has done it before, He will and can do it again. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found this worth your time. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel to not miss any future content like this and so much more. I want to hear from you. Comment down below something that God asked you to drop, or something that you felt had passed the expiration or the due time in your life that you were unwilling to let go of, but once you actually did, you found that the breakthrough and the open doors came more easily into your life. Let me know what you think. Let's have a conversation down below. Until next time, thanks for watching. By the way, how do you all like my makeup? I tried small.